How have sharks survived for millions of years, outlasting even the mighty dinosaurs? And what secrets do they hold within the depths of the ocean? As the true rulers of the sea, these elegant predators glide through the waters with a balance of grace and ferocity. Far from being mindless killers, each species, from great whites to whale sharks, plays a vital role in preserving marine ecosystems. Here are 6 stories. It was a hot evening in Florida's Clearwater Beach in 2012. As the sun set, an amiable orange glow spread across the horizon. The beach was still bustling with people as families packed for the day, but the waves lazily lapped against the shore. 35-year-old marine biologist Laura Searle, who had spent the day researching the local fish population, was one of the few people there. While Laura had planned a routine research trip, her next experience was far from it. Clearwater Beach was renowned for its immaculate waters and a wealth of marine life. She noticed something strange in the distance as she continued down the long stretch of sand. A massive black mass lay on the beach, half hidden by trash and seaweed. She thought it was a big piece of driftwood at first, or possibly a boat that had become stuck. But her heart sank as she got closer. This was not driftwood. That shark was a great white. Gulping air, the enormous predator, which measured almost 18 feet in length, was lying prone on the beach. The sight was astonishing, not just because of the creature's sheer size, but also because great white sharks rarely find themselves stranded on beaches, especially in that part of Florida. While it was known that great whites frequently visited the Atlantic's colder waters, smaller sharks, such as blacktips and nurse sharks, were more common at Clearwater Beach. This was a completely unusual situation. As Laura knelt beside the shark and gently stroked its rough, sand-encrusted skin, her mind raced. Though not for long, the creature was still alive. It appeared vacant even with its eyes open, and its breathing was shallow. She knew it wouldn't survive much longer without help. She could see that the shark had experienced some sort of trauma. Its body was covered in deep gouges, which were clear indicators of recent aggression. Laura shot into action, panicked but focused. She promptly picked up her phone, alerted her research team and the Clearwater Marine Aquatic, and called the local authorities. A response team was put together in minutes. Among them was Laura's colleague and esteemed marine mammal expert, Dr. Everett Thorne. So they started evaluating the shark's state together. While applying damp towels to the shark's skin and watching its vital signs, Laura and Everett began noticing more concerning details. The shark's injuries weren't merely superficial. They appeared to indicate that it had been in a violent collision, possibly with another shark. The bite marks were too big to be caused by anything else. However, why had this great white traveled so near the coast? And what could have provoked these two apex predators into such a confrontation? Laura started formulating these questions when an even more surprising thing occurred. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed movement in the water, a fin breaking through the waves. Her stomach twisted with dread as the creature drew closer, even though she initially thought it was a dolphin. Another great white shark was present. This one was smaller, perhaps 12 feet long, but it was drawn to the activity on the beach and circled where they were working. The search party went cold. They expected a challenging operation involving a single-stranded shark, but now they had to deal with two. The second shark was restless, swimming in ever tinier circles near the coast. It appeared to be looking for something, possibly the beached injured shark. Laura's thoughts were racing. Did one or both of them come to the shore due to an outside force, or was this one the aggressor? The group discussed its options for the next few minutes. They had two options: either deal with the possible threat in the water or keep their attention on the stranded shark. These decisions were not without risk. Laura's specialty as a marine biologist was understanding the unpredictable nature of great white sharks, particularly in stressful situations. She and Everett decided to divide the team into half, with one person continuing to tend to the stranded shark and the other trying to monitor the second shark's behavior. Laura, meanwhile, was beginning to suspect that there might be an environmental factor at work. It wasn't a typical great white hunting area, and the aggressive behavior they saw didn't fit the shark's normal habits. As soon as the immediate threat subsided, she mentally noted that she should investigate this further. The circumstances became more intricate as the hours passed. The condition of the stranded shark was rapidly declining. The deep gashes along its body were causing it great discomfort, even with their best attempts to keep it stable and hydrated. Its prolonged lack of water was also causing stress. However, when everyone started losing hope, the second shark surprised everyone by beaching itself. The group was taken aback. They had never encountered anything similar in all the years they had conducted fieldwork and research. The exact section of the beach became home to two very distressed great white sharks. In Laura's chest, her heart thumped. This was no accident. She was determined to discover what was causing these animals to act in such an odd way. Laura started putting the puzzle pieces together as night fell, and the crew worked non-stop to save both sharks. She mentioned the recent reports of toxic algal blooms off the coast of Florida, where red tide, a result of dangerous algae, had been destroying marine life for months. The toxins released by these blooms may cause marine animals to become disoriented and suffer neurological damage, which could result in unpredictable behavior. Could this be the reason the sharks attacked one another and ventured so close to shore? Laura and her crew moved the larger shark to a nearby rehabilitation center with the assistance of the local authorities. Regretfully, the second shark did not make it through the night. It could not handle the stress of not being in the water or the injuries it had sustained. In the following days, Laura closely collaborated with environmental scientists to investigate the relationship between the shark's peculiar behavior and the toxic algal blooms. Their conclusions were unsettling. Because of pollution and warming ocean temperatures, the blooms were occurring more frequently and becoming more poisonous, pushing marine life into increasingly hazardous and foreign waters. Laura found the experience a sobering reminder of the precarious relationship between people and the natural world. The event brought to light not only the weaknesses of the most formidable predators in the ocean, but also the broader environmental issues that impacted marine ecosystems in ways that scientists were only now starting to comprehend. Ultimately, Laura and her group successfully recovered the large white shark. Weeks later, it was returned to the wild and given a GPS tracker tag to track its whereabouts. However, Laura always remembers seeing those two sharks washed up on the beach. It was a sobering reminder of how the world changes beneath the waves. The waters off Key Largo, Florida's coast, were abnormally warm in late October 2002. The humidity that permeated the night was the kind that could stick to the skin and gave the impression that the air was heavy and dense. There was another kind of stillness beneath the waves, though. As always, the coral reefs were teeming with life, but the delicate balance of this underwater paradise was starting to change in ways that few had noticed yet. Over his years, Esteban Teb Serrano, an experienced underwater videographer who had lived more underwater than on land, oversaw the dive team. For a night dive in the Florida Keys, Teb had brought together a diverse group of recreational divers to observe the nocturnal habits of nurse sharks, which are typically calm and tranquil. Luca Lucky Vagnoni, an adventure-seeking businessman who dived more for the thrill of the dive than scientific knowledge, and Greta Thornhill, a marine biology graduate student, were among the group. Valeria Val Kostova completed the team. She was a straightforward dive instructor with over 10 years of experience escorting visitors through these waters. The team got into their gear as the boat rocked gently on the water, their dive lights creating strange patterns on the deck. The objective was to descend near Molasses Reef, renowned for its colorful coral and abundant marine life along the reef wall. The sight was of nurse sharks gracefully gliding along the seabed, seemingly unaffected by the groups of divers that came and went through their home. That would be different tonight, though. Everything went smoothly as the dive started. With Teb leading the way, the group descended approximately 40 feet, their headlamps piercing the pitch-black darkness. Little reef fish darted in and out of the crevices and nooks, and the artificial light made the coral appear ghostly. Val hovered slightly above the group, keeping an eye on Luca, who tended to drift away from the group when distracted. Greta stuck close to Teb, holding her camera focused on the sandy bottom, hoping to glimpse a nursing shark in action. After about 20 minutes of diving, the first shark surfaced. A large female, almost 9 feet long, swam idly along the reef, looking for food with her blunt head scanning the sand. To capture the shark in its natural habitat without any disturbance, Teb gestured for everyone to remain motionless. The nurse shark appeared unaware of them as it passed, passing only a few feet away. Happy with the encounter, Greta grinned behind her mask. However, an odd thing occurred. A second nurse shark materialized. It was smaller than the first, but it moved with an aggressiveness and speed that was immediately unnerving. Nurse sharks usually swim away from divers, but this one swam right toward them. Teb was the first to notice and gave the group a calm signal. The shark, however, moved quickly and erratically. It made 1 and 2 circles around the group before lunging at Lucas's fins and snapping its jaws in a way that nurse sharks were not supposed to do. Panic struck almost instantly. Luca gave a powerful kick to scare the shark away, but it became more agitated. Teb was able to avoid the shark attack just in time as it charged again, this time aimed at him. Even as Greta struggled to capture the odd behavior on camera, she could sense the tension in the water growing. Nurse sharks were considered placid bottom feeders who hardly ever engaged with people, much less attacked them. This was uncharacteristic behavior. With poise, Val motioned for them to climb slowly, figuring that once they started to back down, the shark would become disinterested. However, the shark was far from finished. It trailed after them, moving with ever-intense movements. Teb noticed that the normally calm animal's eyes had turned white and ferocious, as though something had triggered a profound instinctive reaction. The divers gathered in a group as their bubbles shot up toward the surface in an erratic stream. The shark made one last lunge as they rose, biting into Teb's leg this time. Despite the excruciating pain he was experiencing, he was able to move the shark away with the camera's butt. The water became murky with blood and red mist, making people even more anxious. Val grabbed Teb's arm and pulled him up as quickly as was safe. Then came Greta and Luca with their hearts thumping in their chests. Dragging themselves onto the boat, they surfaced in a flurry, struggling to breathe. Though Teb's leg wound wasn't very deep, it was bleeding heavily. Even so, the attack shocked them, especially Luca, who had never thought a nurse shark of all animals could be so hostile. Once back on the boat, Greta sat in stunned silence as Val bandaged Teb's leg while she reviewed the footage she had taken with her camera. Nurse sharks were noted for their passive, almost apathetic nature. However, this individual's behavior was utterly uncharacteristic in terms of its ferocity. Greta had a nagging suspicion that there was a problem with the coral reef. During the team's lunch debrief the following day, Greta raised her worries regarding the ecosystem. After spending months observing the reef, she had recently noted a few minor alterations, including a decrease in fish, an increase in unusual behavior among marine creatures, and coral bleaching. She suspected the recent undersea construction projects in Key Largo were upsetting the reef's delicate balance in an attempt to expand the marina. The noise and vibrations may have upset the shark's normal hunting schedule, or the pollution from the construction may have contaminated the water. Even though he was still healing from the bite, Teb agreed with Greta's analysis. The violence they had seen was not an isolated incident. Rather, it was a sign of a more serious issue. Still shaken by the encounter, Luca focused more on the immediate threat than the ecological ramifications. Always aware of a task, Val recommended that they inform local law enforcement and marine conservationists about the incident. If the ecosystem was upset, they had to move fast to prevent more animals, and even more diverse, from suffering harm. In the following weeks, Greta, Teb, and Val collaborated to document the changes they saw in the reef. Their footage and reports were submitted to marine biologists and environmental agencies, who confirmed that the underwater construction had a detrimental effect on the aquatic life in the area. Eventually, the project was halted, and efforts were made to restore the damaged sections of the reef. The attack left a mark on the team both physically and mentally. In the end, the team's efforts helped to protect the reef, but the memory of that night dive and the unexpected aggression of the nurse shark would stay with them forever. They had discovered many mysteries in the ocean. Sometimes even the most recognizable creatures could surprise you. In the summer of 1997, the Red Sea coast near the busy town of Hurghada was scorching under the Egyptian sun. A global team of underwater archaeologists painstakingly worked beneath the azure waters to unearth the mysteries of long-lost shipwrecks. Marine biologists and archaeologists have long found the Red Sea's vibrant coral reefs and pristine waters a veritable treasure trove. Under the guidance of distinguished New Zealand underwater archaeologist Dr. Anselm Whitlock, the team had been diving for weeks, carefully recovering artifacts from the sandy seabed. The team included experts from all over the world. Bulgarian marine historian Dr. Ilara Kostova identified the artifacts. Then there was Naoko Fujita, a Japanese marine ecologist who specialized in preserving underwater sites, and Suleiman Jabbar, an Egyptian diver with years of experience negotiating the treacherous currents of the Red Sea. With their combined skills, they formed an impressive team that preserved the delicate ecosystem while shedding light on Egypt's maritime past. On this specific day, the group worked in a vulnerable section of the wreck that held bronze coins and broken pottery, reaching a depth of 30 meters. Strong currents at the site threatened to disperse the artifacts, making them unstable. The team moved slowly and deliberately to prevent upsetting the sediment while maintaining complete focus. With only the pulsating sound of their oxygen tanks and the infrequent click of the underwater camera, the tranquility of the surrounding ocean seemed almost unreal. However, a change occurred in the water. While adjusting equipment near the wreck, Dr. Whitlock noticed a slight movement in his peripheral vision. He slowly turned his head and saw a school of hammerhead sharks less than 20 meters away. The sight was hypnotic at first. The sharks swam elegantly, their hammer-shaped heads slicing through the water. Shark sightings were common in the Red Sea, with hammerhead sharks visiting these waters in the summer. But one of the hammerheads broke away from the group, and it was bigger than the others. It moved differently with more focus and deliberateness. The shark approached, circumnavigating the group from a distance. Next to notice was Dr. Kostova, who had been cataloging the pottery. She gestured to the shark and gave Suleiman a quick pat on the shoulder. Beneath his mask, Suleiman's eyes expanded. He knew that sharks, especially hammerheads, rarely posed a threat to humans. But this one seemed unusually territorial. As the shark drew nearer, it began to show signs of agitation, its movements becoming more erratic. It darted toward one of the team's underwater drones, a small remote-controlled device that captured high-resolution images of the wreck. The shark butted its head against the drone, sending it spinning through the water. The team froze, unsure of what to do. They had trained for such situations, but their theoretical knowledge differed from that of a large, agitated predator nearby. Dr. Whitlock motioned for the team to stay calm. Panic would only make things worse. The shark circled back, moving toward the equipment they had stationed near the wreck. It bumped into one of the oxygen tanks they had tethered to the surface, sending it wobbling dangerously. The team knew they needed to act quickly before the shark caused any real damage, not just to their equipment but to the fragile artifacts they had spent weeks uncovering. Naoko, the marine ecologist, gestured toward the shark, signaling they needed to understand its behavior. She knew that hammerheads could be territorial, especially when they felt threatened or sensed something unusual in their environment. The team used various sonar devices and machinery, which might have agitated the animal. Naoko slowly swam toward the equipment and turned it off. The low hum of the machinery ceased, and for a moment the water seemed to be still. But the shark wasn't done. It charged toward the group again, aiming directly at Dr. Kostova. She backed away slowly, controlling her movements, but the shark was relentless. With years of experience diving in the Red Sea, Suleiman knew they had only one option. He reached into his diving vest and pulled out a small canister of shark repellent, a last resort measure they had hoped never to use. He let loose a cloud of odorless, invisible chemicals that acted as a repellent to sharks without damaging them. The hammerhead stopped in its tracks, confused by the sudden environmental change. It stayed still briefly before turning and swimming off to join the rest of its school somewhere in the distance. The team exhaled as a unit but knew the threat had vanished. Gathering their gear quickly, they started climbing to the surface, being cautious not to make any abrupt movements that could draw the sharks back. After safely returning to their research ship, the group watched the video of the encounter. Dr. Whitlock was shaken but grateful that no one had been hurt. Though this encounter served as a sobering reminder of the precarious balance between human exploration and nature, the group was aware of the risks associated with working in such an unpredictable environment. Within the next few weeks, the team submitted an official report detailing the artifacts and environmental issues they had encountered to the Egyptian authorities. To safeguard the surrounding marine life and the archaeological sites, Dr. Whitlock and Naoko in particular advocated for the adoption of stronger laws. They understood that the ecological and historical riches of the Red Sea were too valuable to be lost to irresponsible human behavior. For the team, the incident marked a sea change. They realized that their work beneath the waves wasn't just about revealing the past, but also about safeguarding the future. So they became ardent supporters of marine conservation while conducting their research. Deep within the Brazilian Amazon basin, the sleepy town of São Vicente was rocked by an odd and unsettling phenomenon in 1991. This remote village had always coexisted peacefully with its surroundings tucked away on the banks of the Rio Tapajós. The river was a constant in the town's life, providing fish, water, and transportation. However, after a string of extraordinary floods, something changed. Bull sharks became a new dangerous presence in the once reliable river. It was the greatest flooding in many years. The Amazon River and its tributaries surged over their banks due to torrential rains and changing weather patterns. The water swept everything in its path, including low-lying fields and houses. Seasonal floods were nothing new to the locals, who Olavo Varela, a fisherman, led. However, strange rumors started to circulate this year as the water receded. Olavo, a man in his mid-50s with the weathered face of someone who had spent his life on the river, was the first to witness the change. One early morning, while casting his nets in a narrow inlet near the edge of town, Olavo felt a sharp tug. He thought at first that he had caught a big pirarucu, or maybe a catfish. However, something strong pulled back as he brought the net close to his boat. A moment later, the water erupted, and Olavo caught off guard and was dragged into the river. The other fishermen on the shore heard his cries and rushed to his aid, but he was gone by the time they reached him. His body was discovered hours later, washed downstream, and had deep gashes on his torso and legs that the nearby villagers had never seen before. Like wildfire, rumors of a shark attack expanded. Sharks this far inland had never been observed in the town of São Vicente. Because of their exceptional capacity to survive in fresh and salt water, bull sharks have always been found nearer to the mouth of the Amazon, where the river empties into the Atlantic Ocean. But now, driven by floods and the shifting ecosystem, they had ventured hundreds of miles upstream. The realization was terrifying. The town's river, once a source of life, had become a threat. The community was shocked by Olavo Varela's passing. The mayor, Raul Pimentel, a stoic man, immediately halted all fishing operations. Boats stayed docked along the shore, usually full of families setting out for the day's catch. The once active riverfront of the town became eerily quiet, and children were forbidden from swimming. There were more attacks as the days went by. Something unexpected pulled farmer Evaldo Vargas under as he tried to cross a shallow stream on his mule. Hours later, his beaten body washed up on the riverbank. Fear multiplied. The town was already struggling economically due to the floods, and now there was an unseen threat. But the people of São Vicente were not alone in their struggle. A group of environmental scientists from the Universidad Federal de Santa Costa were studying the effects of climate change in the Amazon when word of the attack spread to Belém, a significant city hundreds of miles to the east. One of them, Dr. Mayra Delgado, a marine biologist who had spent years studying bull sharks' unusual behavior, was intrigued and concerned by the reports. She had long suspected that changing weather patterns and rising water temperatures altered the natural boundaries that kept these predators in check. Now it seemed her fears had come true. Dr. Delgado, along with her assistant Tadeu Oliveira, arrived in São Vicente a week after Olavo's death. A mixture of skepticism and hope was shown for them, though they were suspicious of outsiders who did not have the same knowledge of the river as they did. The villagers were curious and wanted answers. On the other hand, Raul Pimentel guided the scientists to the attack site because he realized they needed help. Dr. Delgado's examination of the river confirmed her suspicions. The floodwaters, which had brought nutrients and debris from the distant ocean, had also carried juvenile bull sharks far inland. These young sharks, displaced by the chaotic currents, had found themselves in unfamiliar territory, hungry and aggressive. The scientists set up observation points along the river and began tracking the sharks' movements using drones and underwater sonar. What they discovered was alarming. The bull sharks adapted quickly to the freshwater environment, and their numbers grew. Worse, they showed no signs of returning to the ocean anytime soon. The town was gripped by fear, but it wasn't long before survival instincts kicked in. The indigenous communities living deeper in the forest, led by a respected elder named Yara Ipanema, stepped forward with their knowledge of the river's rhythms. They knew how to interpret the water's signals and had witnessed odd things in the past, but never involving sharks. Working closely with Raul and Dr. Delgado, Yara shared her years of wisdom. They collaborated to create a strategy to lessen the danger. Bull sharks were most likely to venture into the shallow banks, so the town's fishermen started building barriers from thick wooden poles. Subsequently, the younger generations were instructed by the Yara's people on safe river navigation and how to avoid shark-known congregation spots. Thanks to the scientists' use of tracking data to predict where the sharks would move next, the town could stay one step ahead of the sharks. After months of tension, the shark attacks began to dwindle. As the rain stopped, the river gradually returned to its typical state. Yet São Vicente's population was irrevocably altered. In addition to leaving wounds and lives lost, the sharks changed how the locals perceived their river. It served as a reminder of nature's delicate balance in addition to being a source of food. After a while, Mayra Delgado and her group left São Vicente. Still, they kept researching, using the town's experience as a crucial case study to illustrate how climate change was causing unpredictable changes to ecosystems. As Yara Ipanema's lessons were assimilated into the town's collective memory, Raul Pimentel returned to his duties as mayor. Ever watchful, the bull sharks had come and gone, but their invasion left São Vicente with a deeper understanding of their environment, and the realization that they would need to adapt to the new challenges the future would bring. In the summer of 2007, a tiny marine research station, the Palana Marine Research Facility, was tucked away in the shade of rolling tides and volcanic rock on Maui, Hawaii's sun-dappled coast. The station had long been a hub for shark researchers, particularly those focused on the behavioral patterns of black-tip reef sharks. Scientists had worked in relative peace for years, tagging and tracking sharks without incident. But something was about to change. Dr. Caden Omura, the lead marine biologist at Palana, has spent the last decade studying black-tip reef sharks. His team, comprised of seasoned researchers, including marine ecologist Dr. Ilara Voss and shark behaviorist Dr. Kaito Sato, was tasked with tagging and monitoring the sharks' movements to understand their migratory patterns and feeding behaviors. The project was part of a larger effort to map the effects of climate change on marine life in the area. The day started like any other. The team had set up a standard tagging session just off the coast. Close to the research vessel, the Mako, was a shallow coral reef that black-tip reef sharks were known to visit. Shark attacks on the researchers were uncommon, and the waters were usually calm. But something didn't feel quite right that morning. The temperature seemed noticeably warmer, and the ordinarily clear turquoise water appeared murkier than usual. As the team lowered their equipment into the water, Dr. Voss, who had been monitoring water temperatures for weeks, noted an alarming rise in the ocean's surface temperature. The team was aware of the general trend of warming waters, but the sudden spike was unusual. Still, they pressed on, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the surface. Within minutes, the first shark approached the boat. It was a black-tip shark around 5 feet long, gliding effortlessly through the water. Dr. Sato, who had tagged hundreds of sharks in his career, prepared the tagging pole. But as the shark neared the boat, its behavior was erratic. It circled sharply, darting toward the ship and veering off a pattern the team had rarely seen before. Ignoring the warning signs, Dr. Omura signaled that the tagging should continue. Dr. Sato lowered the pole toward the shark, but the shark thrashed violently just as the tag made contact. In an instant, it surged toward the side of the boat, its sleek body twisting unnaturally. Before anyone could react, the shark launched out of the water, jaws snapping at the air. The assault happened quickly and violently. Dr. Sato leaned over the side of the boat and the shark's teeth clamped down on his arm, pulling him halfway into the water. His scream broke the stunned silence. Dr. Voss and Dr. Omura rushed to pull him back, blood already spreading in the water. His arm was mangled and gushing blood, and it took all their strength to pull him aboard. Panic set in. The fierce shark circled the boat, its dorsal fin breaking the surface in jagged arcs. Dr. Omura quickly radioed for emergency assistance, his voice shaking as he relayed their position and the nature of the attack. They knew they had only minutes before Dr. Sato's injuries became life-threatening. While they waited for help, Dr. Voss did what she could to stabilize Dr. Sato, using a first aid kit to bandage his wounds. The shark's sudden aggression was unlike anything they had ever encountered. They had always known blacktip reef sharks to be cautious around humans, especially in waters where they weren't actively hunting. But it was as if something had driven the shark into desperation. As the team reeled from the shock of the attack, Dr. Voss reviewed the data they had been collecting over the past few weeks. The water temperature had steadily risen higher than usual for this time of year. Combined with the declining fish populations they had observed, it became clear that the shark's food sources were dwindling. The warming waters drove fish away from the reefs, forcing the sharks to venture closer to human activity and act more aggressively. By the time the rescue boat arrived, Dr. Sato was in a state of shock, his arm wrapped in blood-soaked bandages. The team worked quickly to get him to shore, where he was airlifted to the nearest hospital. He would survive, but the injuries were severe and he would never return to the field. The event compelled the Palana Marine Research Facility to end its shark tagging program permanently. Instead of interacting with the sharks directly, the team decided to focus on researching how environmental changes are affecting their behavior. Dr. Omura advocated for more funding and resources to understand better climate change's effects on the marine ecosystem in the area, even as he struggled with the guilt of what had happened to his colleague. In the following months, the research station became a hub for climate scientists keen to comprehend the increasing instability in marine life's behavior. For the team, the incident was a sobering reminder of the precarious balance between humans and the natural world they are trying to comprehend. It was the summer of 2010 in Monterey Bay, California, renowned for its rich marine life and scenic coastline. Every year, fishermen from all over the state turn out for the fishing tournament in hopes of capturing some of the most valuable fish in the area. That year's competition focused on the elusive and fantastic leopard sharks. These sleek spotted predators were highly sought after for their challenge and the prestige of catching them. However, what was meant to be a weekend of high-stakes sport quickly turned into a chaotic ordeal when an unusually large and cunning leopard shark disrupted the event. Monterey Bay had long been a fisherman's paradise, but it was also home to delicate ecosystems and marine species that often struggled with human activity. The tournament had always been conducted under strict rules to ensure sustainability, but these safeguards did little to prepare the participants for what was about to unfold. One of the competitors, a seasoned fisherman named Grady Thorne, had been participating in the tournament for over a decade. Known for his uncanny ability to predict fish movement, Grady was widely respected in the fishing community. He had never seen anything quite like this. The first sign of trouble came on the second morning of the tournament. Grady was aboard his boat, the Monterey Marauder, casting lines into the deep waters off Cannery Row. The bait had barely hit the water when his line jerked violently. At first he thought he had hooked a mighty shark, but as he struggled to reel it in, the line snapped unnaturally, sending the rod flying out of his hands. He wasn't the only one experiencing problems. Other boats reported similar incidents around him. Lines breaking, equipment mysteriously damaged, and bait disappearing without explanation. Rumors quickly spread among the participants. Some blamed faulty gear, while others swore they had seen a massive leopard shark circling the boats. But it wasn't until Grady's friend, a marine biologist named Dr. Juno Kincaid, got involved that they realized something more intentional was happening. Dr. Kincaid had been studying shark behavior in the bay for years. She was on one of the observation boats, not participating in the tournament but monitoring its impact on local shark populations. When she heard about the mysterious disruptions, she suspected something unusual was at play. Using her expertise, she began tracking the shark's movements in the area, paying particular attention to any anomalies. Sure enough, her data confirmed the presence of an unusually large leopard shark that seemed to be behaving erratically. The boats were being purposefully hampered, rather than merely avoided. Kincaid did not understand. It was once thought that leopard sharks were relatively gentle creatures that frequently skimmed the sea floor for small prey. Such aggressive conduct was uncommon. Subversion increased as the competition went on. Boats with broken hulls, rods, and torn nets were returned to the docks. A fisherman reported that he saw the shark almost capsize his boat by slamming into the side. After his ship was battered by what he called a blur of spots and teeth, one of the competitors withdrew completely. Dr. Kincaid and Grady decided to investigate further. The following day, they studied the waters where most incidents occurred. They hoped to gain insight into the shark's behavior using sonar and underwater cameras. They made an astonishing discovery. In addition to behaving aggressively, the leopard shark seemed to aim precisely at the fishing boats. Each time a line was cast, the shark would swim toward it and either break it or steal the bait, sometimes even damaging the ship. Dr. Kincaid surmised that the shark might have been hurt by a fisherman in the past and had come to associate the boats with a threat. It acted in a planned manner rather than randomly. It appeared the shark realized that by interfering with the competition, it could defend its domain. Grady and Dr. Kincaid approached the tournament organizers with their newfound knowledge. They suggested a brief suspension of the competition to avoid more harm and give researchers more time to examine the shark's behavior. The other fishermen, many keen to take home the prize, weren't fond of the idea. However, the organizers reluctantly decided to call off the event after several additional boats returned with damaged gear. Over the next few days, Dr. Kincaid and her team worked tirelessly to track the shark using non-invasive methods to monitor its movements. They discovered that the shark was likely defending a breeding ground, a shallow area near the kelp forests where leopard sharks often lay their eggs. The shark's aggressive reaction was caused by the tournament's increased boat traffic and fishing activity, which disrupted this vital habitat. The game was eventually called off, and the organizers promised to tighten the rules for subsequent gatherings. The incident spurred a wider discussion regarding the morality of competitive fishing, especially in regions with abundant endangered species like leopard sharks. Grady learned how important it is to respect the delicate balance between sport and conservation, after initially becoming frustrated by the disruptions. With human interference no longer a threat to its territory, the leopard shark vanished into the depths of Monterey Bay. Grady and Dr. Kincaid persisted in improving regulations to preserve marine life and promote sustainable fishing methods. The sabotage was a wake-up call for everyone involved, including the tournament organizers. It served as a reminder that animals were much more sophisticated and ancient than humans could have ever imagined. It was called the ocean home, not just a place for them to play,